Dear participants, you are welcome to week 2 of the workshop on integrating AI ethics for sustainable use in higher education. This week builds on last week, where we examined the history of artificial intelligence, likewise generative artificial intelligence. In this session, we will examine some of the benefits and affordances of AI. These you are already familiar with, but I enjoin you to keep an open mind as we have a seasoned speaker, international award winner, speak to us about these benefits and affordances. So we are joined by Dr. Marylee Amaizu, who would be speaking to us for the next 30 minutes. So I'll present her bio shortly, and she would comment. Dr. Marylee Amaizu is a flourishing AI scientist, architect, and educator. Her expertise is globally recognized, having earned 2 Global Talent Visa Awards in the digital technology sector in the UK and Australia. She is a principal investigator for the Data Study Group at the Alan Turing Institute, the United Kingdom's National Institute for Data Science and Artificial Intelligence, where she collaborates with industry partners to transform commercial ideas into data science research projects. Her current project, in partnership with Conato.ai, tackles building trust and combating misinformation with AI. She is also affiliated with BPP University as a faculty and module leader for the data science and machine learning degree apprenticeship programs. She received her PhD from the University of Leicester, where she worked on performance-efficient and privacy-preserving machine learning systems for resource-contained environments. Dear participants, please join me to welcome Dr. Marylee Amaizu for her presentation. You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks. Thank you everyone for having me, and I'm really glad to join you all to this session. Thanks. And this has been, I understand it's been an interesting workshop so far with some topics that you've been on. So I'm just going to go right to sharing my screen. Today, we're going to be looking at opportunities and affordances, and I'm glad that you've had an intro session on GenAI, and I'm sure some of us as well have been using GenAI in one capacity or the other. So I'll spare you the time to introduce myself, but it's already been introduced. My expertise actually lies around, I do some of education, research, and consulting. So in terms of my expertise around AI, and I also recently completed this project with Conato.ai, which was on trust index for news publishing. So there some intersect with GenAI in it, but it was more around looking at trust, because trust is a big topic, research topic actually. Trusting AI systems and building trustworthy AI systems as well. And these are some past AI projects that I've worked on, particularly, and they're all interesting in their own ways. What the most recent one was around digital twin. So I would go right into, there's a question that I have for us, and I'm just going to share that question. You would see some images or 2 actually. So, but before that, I'll just talk about what we're going to be covering in the session. We would look at those capabilities of GenAI, the benefits, and some sector gains. So the gains that you have in the different sectors, as well as the rise of autonomous agents before we conclude. So I'm mindful we have 30 minutes and I've got a lot to cover, but I'll try to manage that time as well. So you'd see this image on the screen. Have a look at it because the poll is going to come up. I think the image would be there, but the poll might block the screen. So have a look at the two images. There is image A and image B, and the poll will come up for you to choose which one you think was made by AI. Okay, so I'll just give you a moment to have a look, choose one, and then you will complete the poll. You don't need to put on the chat. There's a poll that is going to come up. So let me launch it now. Let me launch the poll. I'll just give you a moment to complete that. Okay, so I think from the poll results, can you see the results as well? Live results of the poll, or am I just the one seeing it? Okay, so it's showing so far that.
I think as a co-host, you can see.
Oh, okay. So I can share it with everyone. All right. So so far we have that. Let me see if I share my screen and just share the screen.
Just wait. When we end the poll, we'll be able
Oh,
to
all right.
share the
Okay.
results with everybody.
Okay, that's fine. So yeah, I can. Is there anyone still complete? I'll give you just a few more seconds, and then we end the poll and share the results. Everyone. Okay, so let's end the poll now and share the results. So can you all now see the results, everyone? We have 26% for image A and 74% for image B. Now, the true answer is that the image on the left, which is image A, was generated by AI, and image on the right, which is image B, was generated by human. Okay, so it means that the 74% got that wrong. Now look at this one. This is text. And I'm going to bring up another poll for us to complete. And you would understand in a moment why we are doing this and what the implication actually is. So I'll bring up the second poll. Which was made by AI. So this is the text now, but yeah, just choose. It should be text A or B. So which one you think was made by AI? Someone said they can't hear anything. Maybe it's your audio. Okay, so now let's, oops, it's changing very, very quickly. Let's give a few more seconds for us to finish up. This one is looking like there is no clear winner. Okay, so let's finish. End poll. So the results here is it's like 50-50, almost, right? But actually, if I open one of the articles here, you'd see this one is real. It has to do the first one, which is about the Barcelona to play Napoli, is generated by human. Now it is even difficult if you see an article to actually tell whether it was human or AI generated. But the one by the right, which is text B, was generated by AI clearly. So why are we doing this and what does it mean? Was it difficult? We see from these tests, right? Even myself, when I did it, I was scoring a 6 out of 10 because there are 10 questions. And these, if you go on the site, this person does not exist. Now, these images, can anyone help clear? I think someone wrote something on the screen. Okay, I hope you see this person does not exist.com, the screen I'm sharing. Yeah, so you would see on this site the different, and if I go to the just the previous slide so that I can fetch you, yeah, so this site is AI. Yes, can you tell the difference? So I'll just put that on the chat as well if you want to play that, if you want to play it. Right, so if you come here, that's where you can play the game. But you'd see from the results that it's 50-50 mostly. I scored the 6 over 10. And this is, you'd see that AI tools are improving because it's becoming difficult for humans to tell the difference between what is AI and what is written by a human. Do you think that is that a good thing? What are your thoughts? Do you think that is a positive thing? Do you have any reservations or concerns around this sort of results? That is 50-50, which means it's getting difficult for humans to distinguish between content generated by AI and content generated by an actual human. What do you think could be, or what are your thoughts? It's not a good development, okay? It's threatening. Okay, so today's session is on, we are on the, I call AI or GenAI a double-edged sword, but because I'm really asked to talk about opportunity, I'm going to try to stay on the positive side. And then someone said to me, with respect to academic work, it's not a good development, it's challenging. Yeah, so let's try to stay on the positive side of this double-edged sword and talk about some of the benefits. I would say from the positive side of things, the fact that AI is improving, which means that we can create more content that are human-like, because if it was very obvious in those days when people generate content, you would definitely know this one was made by a tool, right? And that means the quality is usually lower. But now there's better quality, which means humans can use it and use it very effectively to improve their work or to offset some of their workload as well. So we're going to look at it from that positive opportunity side of things here. So the first bit, we'll talk about some of the Gen AI capabilities, its ability to mimic human creativity. Someone says it's scary to find that it's getting difficult to distinguish. Yeah, it is scary, but then we'll look at some of the opportunities in today's session, which is what this is about. Now, the Gen AI hype has been on, and this is the Gartner hype cycle that really shows some of the, I usually look at this hype cycle when I want to understand some of the trending topics, either in research or in the industry. And you could see here, there is a lot of emphasis. So some of the peak technologies here, like foundation models. So you hear a lot around foundation models, synthetic data as well, because with Gen AI, a lot of data can be generated, which means people are going to be interested in synthetic data a lot, large language models as well. So these are some of the things at the peak. And you'll also see prompt engineering here as well. So There's so many things coming up in this domain, and there's a lot of hype around it as well. And we're going to be looking at, you'd see the stats here that 80% of jobs can incorporate GenAI into their work activities, and that 300 million jobs could be automated in some way. So even as educators, as people in research, would have to be thinking well ahead on how we can harness the GenAI tool, or how as well we can be aware of the concerns and use it in a way that would not harm creativity in that sense. So in terms of capabilities, we have GenAI, a subset of AI dedicated to generate text, images, or other data. So you'd see that GenAI here is a subset of deep learning and machine learning, and then AI as all-encompassing. And if you were to categorize the capabilities, you have language capabilities, the visual, and the audio. So there is a lot that is happening in that space. I think someone wrote on the screen, and I just need to clear this. So can I get some help with clearing?
Please stop sharing, then restart sharing again to clarify.
Oh, okay. Right. Okay, let's try to avoid writing on the screen so it doesn't obstruct the screen. So yeah, we're talking about the GenAI capabilities, and it's good to know these capabilities because it would help you understand the full scale of opportunities that GenAI can afford. So for example, for language, you can generate content, code writing. So data scientists and programmers are using it a lot now to generate code or translate language, doing language translation, summarization of text as well. So you can get a large chunk of text and it would summarize. I was working on a project that was related to bid writing in the consulting work that I was doing. And you see that this bid team, they always get huge documents to work on. But with the GenAI tool, they could now harness all of the different capabilities of GenAI to summarize the different documentation into a very concise bid or proposal that they could now send out. So it's really interesting. Q&A as well. Actually, GenAI models, most of them are trained to be conversational. So you have a two-way conversation, and that makes them very good for question answering. So if you actually want to set questions, you could use maybe objective question, multiple choice questions. You could harness that capability. And when it comes to visual, we'll see more around images, videos coming up as well. There is this whole space of digital avatars where GenAI is being used to create. So you have the behind the scene GenAI powering it, but you have the digital avatars that are having the interactions with humans on a site, for example. Then media design as well, and 3D models. For audio, there's also a lot of application around speech to text, text to speech, even music that is coming into the space. Now, we look at what sets Gen AI apart, because AI has been here for a while, but what is it really that sets Gen AI apart? We talk about the fact that Gen AI models, the foundation models are very powerful. They are very powerful because they've been trained on massive chunks of data from the internet. And we talk about the adaptability. They can be adapted to different, because they have broad capabilities. So you can adapt them to solve specific problems. And you talk about the versatility. They are versatile. They are not limited to specific tasks. So the previous AI models, you have them, for example, if you want image recognition, you train an image recognition model and it does just that. But with Gen AI, you could have a model. It's more like a jack of all trade and master of some, because it's really difficult to get that one massive model that can be master of everything. So that's why some persons use the foundation models, and on top of that, they can train more specialized models. You talk about being democratized, which means it can be in the hand of anyone. Today, if you just just go to ChatGPT, anyone can use ChatGPT. It's an app that is out there, and you don't need any extensive AI expertise to use it. And we're coming into the phase of low code, no code. I was teaching a class, data science class, and we have so many tools, all tricks. We have some open source tools that you could just use to do your data science without having to do all the Python coding, like NIME Analytics. You can create your workflow. Now with GenAI as well, you can incorporate your low code, no code. And I would say the value of GenAI lies in how well you can prompt it to give you a response. Some persons begin to call that, there's this field now, prompt engineering, and that is a growing field, even in research. There are lots of things coming up, even with respect to the ethical side of it and the security side of things, because people are looking at how you could even use a prompt to assess the model and the data the GenAI has been trained on. So there's the people looking at the security side of things. So it's becoming like social engineering as well, especially in the hands of the bad actors, because similar to the way a human can be prompted to release information by social engineering, you'd see that it's a similar way people are using GenAI models, and in the hand of the bad actors, they can actually use it to retrieve very sensitive information about how the model has been trained, or about the inner workings of that model and the data it's been trained on. But generally, yes, the value of GenAI lies in how well you can prompt it, how well you as the user or the developer can prompt it. And that's why for developers, they're looking at things like security and governance, how to put the security and governance around it, the control, how to turn the AI into, or the Gen AI model into a proprietary product. I was working with a group of persons, and it's very, very easy to build an app, an LLM app. In fact, you can spin off an app in few hours. But the real differentiation there would be what competitive advantage you would be bringing into that app. Otherwise, the fact that it's democratized means anyone can create an app. And that is a good thing, but also a concern, because it means there hardly no differentiation, because these foundation models, they're all coming from the same companies, OpenAI, Llama. That's the main big shots that can afford the size of this model, that can afford to train these models. Now, I'll talk a little bit more around this control, right? Because what you see here, the model, first of all, starts with very, very large data that's been used to train the model to give you a base model. And some fine-tuning is done on that model to create an assistant model. So usually it's thousands of human labeled data that has been Q&A to turn it into a question and answer model, and then down to the prompting. So me and you as just users, this is the part that we're mostly exposed to, where we can prompt it to give us the answer that we want. And that's why we say it's garbage in, garbage out. And this has been trained on massive, massive public internet data. So you see why it is called a jack of all trade, because you have data on finance, data on health, data on almost any sector you can think of being used to train this model. So now we're going to be looking at core benefits of GenAI, and we'll consider a lot of benefits: efficiency and productivity, the fact that you can automate tasks, draft documents, analyze large data sets. We look at cost reduction. So there was this article in the news of how GenAI has saved 100K hours in under a year. That's because of how it can, the capabilities it has, and personalization as well. So you could tailor user experience and app and website by providing customized content and recommendations. So GenAI can look at this large data and make out some recommendations. And then we talk about innovation and creativity. So you have some tools that can help artists, writers, and designers generate ideas and content, although there is the concern as well around, is it stifling creativity, right? Because you have a lot of the content being created, and where does that leave the creatives? But yes, on the positive side, which is what we're focusing on, it can help them generate ideas, so preventing that creative or writer's block. Customer experience, data analysis and insight. This one is really cool. I was taking a data class, and we're exploring some of the tools around GPT, how even Excel now incorporates some form of a GPT into its environment. So if you use this analyze data function over here by the right corner, you'd see you can even put a text and tell it what you want, and it will give you a chart that you can convert to a pivot chart, pivot table, and it's all picking that from this data. And it's really good because you don't have to expose your data to the public GPT. You can have it as a feature, and it would be working with your data right where you have it stored. So for privacy concerns. Then there is more to come with respect to GenAI application, because the landscape keeps increasing rapidly. So I don't know if you can see this diagram very well, but it's just showing all the GenAI landscape, and it's massive, from text to image to video, audio applications. So these applications keep coming up, and they're all pointing to how widespread people are using. Even, for example, website generation from text, people are doing that. You can just send a text, and some apps can help you generate your website from just text. Some are helping you with code analysis to analyze your code. Some are helping you as personal assistants and AI agents. For example, there's an app that I use just to manage meetings, and it's all working behind the scene. And that's because it's being powered by technologies like GenAI. So the landscape is increasing. We'll look at some sector gains as well. So for example, healthcare, in education, finance and business sector, creative industry. Particularly for healthcare, I find it interesting because most times you see that physicians are spending more than 50% of their time on administrative tasks. So tasks like writing up notes and things like that, which is really boring. So you finish up a meeting and you would need to write up notes and things like that. So with GenAI, for example, it can free up most of their time, even with clinical decision making, because this application can take all chunk of documents and synthesize that, summarize that into more concise recommendations, and a lot more that it can do. Education as well is interesting because now we're moving towards virtual reality. So some people are actively creating applications where you could have GenAI powered classes that can act as a coach to learners, more like helping them navigate different environments and generating the right content. Even generating, you can also use GenAI to generate the virtual environments that those learners would be engaged in. Then financial as well. So for example, you have fraud detection. Usually fraud detection algorithms they need to evolve and learn. So GenAI can mimic fraud patterns to create synthetic anomalies and enhance detection algorithm to help outsmart fraudsters. Then business and marketing, there are a lot. People have been doing a lot around content creation, and we have IT as well, automation in IT, processes, infrastructure as code as well. Particularly in the creative industry, GenAI has been doing a lot in redefining arts, graphic design, writing, and so on and so forth. So just going to run through fashion. And this is an interesting one because I was looking at an application where you have, let's say, a description of a clothing, and it can give you different models and all that. So there are lots of application in this space. And the last bit in this section I want to highlight is the rise of autonomous agents. So these are agents that have been leveraged to perform complex tasks and achieve specific goals with minimal human intervention. So you see, typically with GenAI, you have its ability to reason. It has a knowledge of the world because of the size of the data and variety of the data has been trained on. But there's other augmented abilities, and that's where agents come in. And I'll just talk a little bit because the whole space of controlling AI has been evolving, controlling GenAI. It has been evolving, and that's where autonomous agents come in. And what are they? They help you solve complex problems. They help automate conversations. So for example, let's say you can enter a prompt, or you can give it a persona and say, actually, I am this. I need you to generate summaries of earnings and financial reports. And it will just help you, just give it the goal, big picture of what you want to do. And it can help break down the tasks into very concise form. And a typical example, I just run, let me run this to show you. So this one says, I want you to generate or conduct research on tech products, enter up to 5 goals for your AI, and you just give it goal 1, goal 2, goal 3, goal 4, goal 5. And every other thing, the AI would do the research for you and then generate a summary of what it has done and even save it in a file. Now it saved all the product research it has done for the person to download, and even the top 5 headphones based on what the person has indicated as a goal. So that's how, it's advancing towards autonomous agents. Okay, and I'm just going to skip this part and then talk about, we've seen so far that GenAI, it holds breakthroughs in creativity, problem solving, and human-computer interaction, and is revolutionizing industries, fostering innovation across diverse applications. So that is, if I'll just go through this use case with respect to explaining autonomous agents, because I think I've just got a minute or so left. So here you can have your application, large language model application, and an agent. All you need to do is to ask it a question, and it will then go to retrieve the information from wherever the information is stored, right? Because we have realized that the AI is quite limited, the GenAI, it doesn't have all the, so even if it's been trained on a lot of data, sometimes data can be updated, sometimes it needs access to proprietary data that you have. There's some application that I was researching as well that I was looking at recently, climate change. So when there is new changes to climate data, then you need to pass it on to or connect it to this database, and it will search for the information and retrieve it. So the agent is doing all of that. It's deciding whether the answer is within the large language model or the answer is in the database. So whichever one, it will pull all that data together, synthesize it, and send it back to the large language model to give you a response. And that is what it does here. So this is a case of improving the productivity of relationship managers, because they're spending a lot of time reviewing large documents like reports, transcripts. So this is a typical application where you are using this GenAI and an agent to help scan all the documents and provide synthesized answers back to these relationship managers, so they don't have to go all over the place searching for the answers. The agent helps them pull it all together, synthesize it, and give a very concise response. Okay, and that is the much we're going to be covering today, and I believe there's going to be time as well for questions.
That was a very insightful presentation. Are there any questions? I noticed that someone has posted a question in the chat room. We will start with that in the chat box. We will start with that. The person was asking a question about autonomous agents. What are autonomous agents for educational institutions? Can I react to that?
So you have, for example, you as a user, when designing, it's a bit complex, but just think of it. You as a user, you send a request, right? But usually when an LLM application is being built, it's not just you sending a request and getting a response back. There are certain things that have to happen behind the scene. So the agent will pick up your request and pass it through. There's so many other different modules that are also involved. So yeah, so usually you have an application, you have an API. So if I'm to use ChatGPT now and build an app with it, I have an API, OpenAI API, that I send a request to, and it gives me an answer normally. So that large language model, that's the way people build applications. You can expose it to a simple, your large language model, you send a request through the API, you get a response. But now with agents, you do much more than using the large language model API. It will pick up, it will find out where exactly the request is coming from. Is it your request? Is it something that the large language model has an answer to, or do you have some other database that it can use to provide an answer to your request? So if it has other tools it could use, so for example, if it can search Wikipedia, it can search Google, use Google search, it can look into different sources to then synthesize your response and give you back the answer. So that way you're not limited to large language model alone. So they manage a lot of the workflow behind the scene. They manage the requests, the prompts manager, there's a response manager, there's a memory, there's a context manager. All of that is happening behind the scene. And that's what the autonomous agents manage. So they work a lot with the orchestration. You hear an orchestration framework or tool. So that's what they are. They bring all this together to give you a concise and more accurate response as the user.
Thank you very much, Marylee. That was a very detailed response to that specific question. But we have 3 more hands raised here. I'll just request them, just ask your question very brief and straight to the point. John Oguleu, I'm sorry if I don't pronounce your name correctly. Apologies about that. And I'm not using titles, I'm just using name. I know they are professors and very senior academics here. John Oguleu, just unmute yourself and ask the question, please.
Thank you. John Oglewu from University of Calabasa. I want to quickly ask a question regarding the use of Gen AI in healthcare industry, precisely when she made mention of as a personal assistant to physicians in harnessing information you feed in to make prescriptions. But my fear is this: currently I know that there's this kind of a paradigm shift from the current practice medical practice to what I have seen called precision medicine, where individuals are being based on genetic makeup. This general perception is no longer. How will this Gen AI be able to capture the diversity as a function of this genetic makeup of individuals in order to give this kind of precision medicine attention to assistance to physicians in attending to clients? It's a fear. I don't know what she has to say as an expert in that.
Okay, thank you very much. She'll take that question on board. I'd like another person to ask the question, so that she takes the questions in clusters. Okay. Olubunmi Fadipe Joseph. I know it's Professor Fadipe. Please unmute and ask your question. Please, let's be straight to the
Hello,
point. Just be brief.
Okay. Thank you. Can Marylee explain to us how we got the answer for the polls? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Wasila Sada, unmute yourself and ask the question, please.
Question is regarding this healthcare using generative AI for pre-processing, natural language pre-processing in AI. Can they do the parsing? If maybe you have a context-free grammar, can you use these large language models for pre-processing? That's part of speech tagging. Can you do that? Thank you.
Much. I wonder if Marylee got the question, but I'd like you to address these three questions now. We'll take the next three afterwards, so that we'll take them in clusters like that. You got the three questions, right?
Okay, there are two in health, and then I will then answer the one on the poll. So regarding precision medicine, and what I would say is usually with GenAI, when you have a vast database of medical knowledge, maybe latest research, because GenAI thrives on what the model has been trained on. You already have some foundation model that's been trained. As long as that model has been trained on some medical or health records, and sometimes those records are not current, then you can then connect it to more recent database, which is where these autonomous agents and retrieval augmented generation technologies come in. And as long as that's available, they can draw on this vast database to propose maybe new interventions, for example, or individualized care. So that's what I would say on that side. Then on the other question of large language model for pre-processing and speech tagging, yes, there are lots of application around text to speech, speech to text that you can leverage GenAI for. So usually you can, if you have data already, GenAI thrives on processing large. I showed you an example of you on Excel data sets that is available. So if you have data, any data sets, it's good with classification. So anything that's related to classification, tagging, because you might have to do some additional training or the prompt engineering aspect of it to prompt it to align it with the task at hand. But the advantage it has is that it has this large corpus of data that has been trained on, so you can use that and align to your use case and use it for either speech to text or text to speech applications. Then on the question of the answer to the poll, so I shared a link and I'm going to drop that link again, and that's where I played that game, and the answers to the game, that's what I put on the screen. So you can try the game. It's a set of 10 questions. You would see it's usually random. It will change with time, over time. So you can play the game and get a set of questions that you can just use to test your ability to differentiate between AI and human generated content. So hope that all helps.
Israel Taiwo, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Straight to the point, please.
I'm just curious about how Marylee applied AI for using Internet of Things data to enhance. I didn't get the whole thing, but then I have the question on the chat. So I guess you would pick it up from there. Thank you so much.
What's
Think
your
that
question?
the one related to using IoT data to enhance digital twin. Okay, that
Yes.
that
Thank you.
particular project was not using. So I mentioned my past AI project. So this was way back. It wasn't using Gen AI in particular as a technology. It was more on AI projects where it had IoT data that and then building some models. But if I was to use Gen AI, I could use Gen AI in the code creation part of it. I could use Gen AI if I want to do some data augmentation or to generate some synthetic data to augment the IoT data or to simulate. So you can use Gen AI to create some simulation data for experimentation. So there are lots you can do with respect to generating synthetic data, as well as if you want some assistance with your analysis, data analysis as well.
Okay, so please, we're going to take this in clusters now. So, Abdul, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
I thank you very much. My question is, what is the how can we do plagiarism check for Gen AI generated content? Thank you.
Thank you. Gloria Cole, please, what's your question?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, good evening. Please, my question is, what really is the relevance of Gen AI to academic writing? I'm carrying out a research right now on because colleagues have complained that when they write their abstracts, for instance, they send it to Gen AI to polish, and then they send these abstracts out. These abstracts are rejected because they said they are generated by Gen AI. And then I had to carry out something like that with students also, gave them assignments to do. And when they submitted, I said, let me see your drafts. And they actually submitted their drafts with the final copies. And I saw that they actually wrote this essays themselves. But after writing, they now sent it into GenAI to polish and then resend. And then these things are rejected. So my question is, what is the essence then of GenAI in academic writing? If GenAI polishes my work, you reject the work. So that's my question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Abubakar Olaseni, please unmute and ask your question.
Thank you very much, sir. Well, I'm into urban planning and project management. I just want to know from the guest speaker, what areas can I apply Gen AI for urban planning and for project management? Thank you.
So, Marylee, over to you. The questions
Okay.
are there.
The first question, I had plagiarism check, but I think I missed some bits in. I don't know if anyone could, but I had
I think
plagiarism
his
check.
question is how can AI be used for plagiarism check? So that was the question he asked. Something like that.
Right.
Yeah, that's it. Chat.
Okay. I think the two questions are around, let's say, academic side. So we're actually getting into a point where, where this game of police and thief, that's what is happening in the AI world now, because you'll have some applications being developed to catch AI. So AI detecting AI, and it's now the world we're in, because it's becoming more difficult for humans to detect. So humans are now creating AI tools that will detect AI, and it's like, who is going to get the better tool? That's the war we have, or where we have gotten to right now. And the second question around what's the relevance to academic, because those academics are now using AI to detect AI, right? And sometimes the whole essence of, yes, I really understand that concern, because if you're using AI not as an idea, just like write me my essay, is still, you're depending totally on AI. But the value that we used to use Grammarly before AI came out, right? Grammarly as a tool for editing and all that. And there was no issue, no concern. So I was using Grammarly for proofreading my work. For example, I'm not a native English speaker, so sometimes you write, you still need some tools to proofread your work. But now the fact that, and that's what I would say, when using GenAI, you as a human, look very carefully that it's not modifying your language of writing when you put it into the tool. Because sometimes you put it into GenAI, tool and you use a prompt, the prompt you use will determine what it will give you. It will completely change it. It will turn it into something else. That's not what you want. So if you've written your article, you rather than asking it to maybe revise, I've specifically pinpoint proofread. Like if I'm using ChatGPT, I'll say proofread, not revise. If I write revise, it will turn it into something completely different. So be specific on the kind of prompt you use so that it wouldn't turn your essay around and then turn that into an AI tool or AI write-up that can be easily detected. Then the third question was on, project management or urban planning. So knowing that GenAI already can be a tool that you can use for creativity as well, to improve your creativity. Maybe if you depending on what the kind of project or task you're doing, if you are trying to brainstorm ideas on what to do or organize your work, I already gave an instance of autonomous agents helping to do product research. But let's say you wanted to project management, a lot of project management tools now are being developed with some GenAI behind the scene, because it can give you some recommendations and it can help you organize your work into different bits and structure. But like you can explore more around that as well.
Thank you very much. We just have one more hand raised, and that's the only hand I'm going to take now. I want to read the question that I picked up from the chat box. For avoidance of doubt, will the use of GenAI in education not be synonymous to plagiarism or academic misconduct? So the person then went on to ask, is it possible to build a socially intelligent AI that responds to affective behavior and cognitive cues? So that's the question the person had. And the person is from the physics department.
On plagiarism, because I'm an educator and we have some policies and we have some communications with students around use of GenAI. We don't stop them from using GenAI. As a matter of fact, some courses that I teach, like when I teach some courses, machine learning and AI courses, sometimes I tell my students, because I know they are coming, they are apprentices, they are doing degree apprenticeship, and you don't expect them to be perfect in Python writing. So sometimes I tell them, actually, when you want to troubleshoot your code, you can make use of ChatGPT, because it depends on what you're assessing. They are being assessed on their workplace projects, and you are looking at their ability to bring all these tools together and create their own project and solve a problem. But because you can't eliminate the use of GenAI, even if you ban it, they would bring it in, or they will find a way to use it. So it's about how you, and again, assessments. I noticed that the educators are still using the same assessments they were using before GenAI came up. You need to also refine your assessment so it reflects the new realities in a way that it would stretch their creativity. Because the way assessment was done before, people can easily use GenAI with those assessments. So work on the kind of assessments so we get more creative with the way we assess learners. And even though they're using GenAI, we also let them know the boundaries of the use of GenAI, rather than using it as a way to do your assignment from scratch, but a way to enhance your creativity. I think that is the way we have been approaching it. And then
okay, the last question we'll take will be from Caroline Isero. So unmute yourself and ask. I can see your hand up now. You need to unmute and ask your question. That will be the last question for this session, please.
My question is, when she brought the poll questions, I was able to detect the right answer for both polls. I was able to do that for the text message because I'm already very good in creative writing. And that's why I was able to detect that. You don't need to read the whole text. The first sentence already I was able to pick out. Then the problem now is our youth. The youth, maybe from secondary school, from year one, they need to be very vested in creativity, creative writing. That's the only way they'll be able to know how to use the AI positively, because if they do not know they are not taught into this creative
Are
writing.
you asking a question or you are
I'm
teaching
giving my
us? Are
question.
you
I'm
asking?
giving the question.
Please
So
ask
now
the question, please. Our
okay.
time is fast spent.
All right, all right. I want her to this use of agent. Don't you think that this use of agent by AI is a limitation? Because she mentioned that during her presentation, the use of agent.
For every, we're looking at the benefits. So if I'm making a balanced presentation, I will really talk in a balanced way between the opportunities and the cons around it. But the autonomous agents have their pros, right? It helps make the task easier and faster. And if you're particularly talking about the young ones, the youth, that's also a debate, right? Because some people are torn between how it stifles their creativity and also how it can help them in their productivity. It's just like the use of calculator. The issue I have, like if you compare calculator and GenAI, is that calculator is a deterministic tool. I do 5 times 5, I always get 25. But with GenAI, I can get different responses. And I need to have that human intelligence to determine out of the 5 different responses I get each time I run the GenAI, how do I choose the best relative to what I want to do? And that's actually where humans need to also evolve in knowing how to make the choice and not leaving it as just a tool for automation, but also bringing in their human in the loop knowledge in selecting. And the tools are not perfect as well. That's why you also have technologies. The people that build the tools are also using humans to refine the responses and to, as a matter of fact, a lot of humans, thousands of humans were used to train this tool to make it fit for purpose at a very low pay. And that's why, that's another topic altogether. We'll go there. Okay.
Thank you so much, Marylee. Thank you for the beautiful presentation and very excellent response to those questions.